Why did I feel compelled to be a writer is a really easy question to answer, because I think ever since I was in second grade I wanted to be a writer, long before I had even the slightest inkling of talent. I loved books growing up. And in my early 20s I went to Israel. Gave me my subject matter, my material. I've written about Israel or things related to Israel in all three of my books. And I think otherwise, if I had not gone, I probably would have been writing some hipster crap about sitting in cafes, Dooney's Cafe or the Future Bakery, drinking coffee and being depressed. So, I found my subject matter. And after I came back from Israel, I felt like I was just going to burst. It was just too much. I didn't speak the language fluently enough, and I wanted to get back and write. And I went to graduate school and I wrote The Ascent of Eli Israel. I guess I wrote 8 or 9 stories. 7 of them ended up in the book. One of those stories I kind of put aside and it ended up in my new collection, which is out now. There Is No Other. But it was a book that, I guess they say that authors do spend their whole life preparing to write that first book, and it's the second book that is really the challenge. And I would say that's absolutely true. My novel, Who by Fire, Who by Blood, was the most difficult thing I ever had to do. It took me about 4 years on the novel to find even a sense of what the story was. And then finally, the last 6 months, it's like you're at the top of the roller coaster and it just goes down, and it ended easily, and it came off a lot better than I ever thought it could. I mean, all the storylines connected. I was really proud of that book. I think I make sense of the world through my writing. I'm not overtly a religious person, but many of my stories are, and I think I engage with my Judaism through the writing of my stories. I engage in dialogue with myself, and when I sit down to kind of figure out these what-if questions, this little old man, little rabbi, comes at my brain, who's much smarter than I am, and he sits down and he helps me write these stories, because I am much smarter when I sit down to write than when I speak. Ideas that I never could have ever imagined open up to me, and I'm always surprised. And I think that if the writer is not surprised by what he or she is writing, then the reader will not be surprised. So I think that has something to do with some of the critical success I've had with my stories, is that people feel the same kind of surprise that I felt. Where my characters come from, 90% of my characters I think are, I like to say, 100% fictionalized. I'm curious about the world. I don't like people very much in some ways, but when I sit down to write about these people, I start to love them, because you understand them. You go through the act of walking in the shoes of somebody that you would never otherwise might not give the time of day to. The story, My Darling Sweetheart Baby, which appears in There Is No Other, is loosely based on the people that lived on this street, the last ungentrified street of my neighborhood in Park Slope. And they would sit on my front porch and drink at all hours, and there was hookers hanging around. And I thought to myself, I really hate these people. I just want to go out and tell them off. But I couldn't, because my bedroom was on the first floor and there was no bars on the windows. So I sat down to write the story, in a sense, as an act of revenge. And as I did it, I realized I started to love these characters, because you're forced to understand them. You walk in their shoes. So writing is a very humanistic act. In my new book, there's a high school girl who gets in a sexual situation with somebody, and my students they wonder what is it that makes you understand a young high school girl so much? And my one answer is, I don't know, but the other answer is, as you get into that kind of meditative state, because again, I could not understand a 16-year-old girl as I talk to you, but when you sit down to write, you pick up the pen, something different happens, different doors open to your subconscious. Your subconscious has everything that you've ever witnessed. As you craft these stories, it makes sense of that subconscious. So it's a very therapeutic act, and it kind of brings a lot of understanding to the chaos of the world. I do not like the chaos of the world. I do not like when people are late. I don't like when people don't phone me back. I don't like a picture that's hanging crooked. I'm an aesthete, so when I go through a neighborhood of ugly houses, I feel not happy. When I see beautiful buildings and beautiful flowers, I feel very happy. So as you write, you can bring order to the chaos of the world. And so that's really my way, I guess, of keeping sane and understanding the world.